getting that all set up. I'd love to hear where you all are coming from, where you're all dialing in from. So I'd love to drop that in the chat. I'm here in Oakland, in the Bay Area. Oh. From Stockton. Nice. From Greece, Vienna, Austria. I have some family in Stockton. New York City. And then we just, I believe we're all connected to LinkedIn and YouTube. So welcome everyone if you're joining us from those spaces. I'd love for you to drop in the chat. Just let us know where you're coming from. We'll go ahead and get started here in just a few minutes. From Sacramento, Palos Verdes, Massachusetts. Awesome, quite a few folks from the US so far. Let's see, let me check YouTube and see if anybody has chimed in with where they're coming from. Not yet. Let's check LinkedIn and then we'll go ahead and get started here. It's like Canada, awesome. I also have some family in Canada. My mom's from Montreal, actually. California, Denmark, the UK, Portland. Glad to be back. Awesome. Thanks for joining us again. Denmark, a few more from Canada, Phoenix. Cool. All right. Well, I want to make sure I leave enough time for the awesome content that we have for you today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen briefly and get started here. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us. This is one of our tech talks that we have here, exploring police fatal force with SQL Analytics. We have some awesome speakers here. We have Brooke, Ken, and Chin Ying who are going to be presenting today. So this is part of the Data Plus AI online meetup community. So if you're joining us on YouTube and LinkedIn, I invite you to check out that meetup group and join so you can be aware of all the upcoming content we have. We run tech talks about once a week, sometimes twice, and we have a lot of awesome events coming up for you in the new year. And then also, if you'd like, for anyone joining us in the Zoom, you can also subscribe to YouTube, turn notifications on there. We have all of our tech talks recorded and posted there. So we also have a lot of the videos and content from Summit. And I believe even some of the videos from Summit EU are up there or going to be up there shortly. So I invite everyone to check out our YouTube, and we have all the awesome content there. And then we just started streaming to LinkedIn. So welcome everyone from LinkedIn. And so that's another space we have for you to join. I just do want to give a quick plug for our, I think it's going to be our last tech talk for the year, actually, before we all kind of wind down for the end of the year. But next week we have Tim Hunter and Jules, who are going to talk about software 2.0 data-driven programming. So that's going to be next Tuesday. So I'll post the link to our meetup group in all the different chat spaces so you can join us there. I do want to give a quick plug. We have a really awesome new vidcast series that Denny Lee and Brooke Wenig, she's actually one of our speakers today, started, called Data Brew. And Denny and Brooke explore various topics in the data and AI community, and they interview a variety of different subject matter experts in data engineering and data science. So I invite you and encourage you to join us for those vidcasts. They're available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you check out that link, I believe there's also a couple other ways you can get that content, but I'll also drop that link in the chat too. So I hope you'll check it out. There's a lot of awesome speakers that they've been working on and episodes. So I hope you'll check that out. And then just a quick reminder before I pass it to Chen-Ying. This video is recorded and it'll be available on our YouTube space after. And I will drop the link in LinkedIn and Zoom for everyone to check that out. And we also will have all the resources available for you there as well. So if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat spaces. If you're joining us in Zoom, there is a Q&A panel, so I encourage you to use that instead of the chat. And then YouTube and LinkedIn, feel free to use the chat and we'll gather the questions. And if we have some time at the end, we'll go ahead and answer as many as we can. So with that, I will pass it along to Chen-Ying.
That's good. Thanks, Karen. Hi, everyone. My name is Chen-Ying. I'm based in Chicago. I'm a data scientist at Databricks. Now I'll just pass on to Brooke to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Brooke Wenig. I'm the machine learning practice lead at Databricks. Normally I'm based out of San Francisco, but right now I'm enjoying the holidays in Canada. And now I'd like to pass it over to John.
Awesome, thanks Brooke. Hey guys, this is John, spelled C-A-N, but pronounced John. I'm in the product management team looking over our efforts around SQL Analytics. And yeah, excited to be talking to you guys today.
Okay, with that, I guess I can start sharing my screen. This one right here. Should be seeing the screen right now. So welcome everyone to our Tech Talk, the tutorial demo on the SQL Analytics platform today. We're based on this fatal police shootings article that Brooke and I wrote. And we'll be teaching you how to develop queries, visualizations, and how to compile them into a dashboard that's interactive and that also allows users to filter by their parameters of interest as well. So before we get started, I wanted to point you to the GitHub page. I believe one of us will drop a link in the Zoom chat. This GitHub page contains the data, as you can see, and also the queries that we have been using to produce analysis that's contained in this blog post. Due to time constraint, we will not go through the data import steps, but we ask that you can follow the data import instructions in the first notebook right here after this demo. And so during this demo, feel free to just sit back and watch and ask your questions in the Q&A chat panel. So to start off, let me show you how to get to the SQL Analytics Workspace. So here, I'm just on a regular workspace of Databricks. Many of you might be familiar with this page. And to get to the SQL Analytics Workspace, all I need to do is to click on this toggle button right here that allows us to switch to the SQL Analytics. So once I click on this, then you can see that now I'm brought to the home page of SQL Analytics. So I've marked some of my dashboards to be my favorites and my queries to be my favorites, which is why they show up on this home page right here. So to show you the original dashboard, I'm going to click on this one right here and show you that this is there are parameters of interest that users can filter by. We can add markdown cells, and you can also add a variety of graph widgets to the dashboard. You can see that this is a bar chart of comparing different states of fatalities, and there is a counter chart right here, another bar chart demonstrating fatalities by race. And there's going to be a Senki diagram here as well that investigates the breakdown of fatal shootings, followed by bar chart, cities with highest fatalities, and a funnel chart here that shows a camera recording coverage over the years. And we have an interesting one here that's called a sunburst sequence, where you can hover over to look at the stages of each event. And we also have a map visualization here. So today, we will just create a mini version of this dashboard. So we'll start with a simple bar chart first. So now, let me just show you how we can get to the queries page. So you can see that there is multiple buttons here on the sidebar icon. I'm going to first click on this queries button right here. And then you can see that there is a list of queries that are run on this workspace right here. So I can click on this new query. And you can see that on the left-hand side right here, I have an endpoint listed, which I will talk about later. And there's also a database name and also a list of tables that are within this database. And I can click on the table that I'm interested in to look at the column names and also the data types. So just to show you a really simple query, how we can get queries running in the SQL Analytics Workspace, I'm just going to click start typing. You can see that there is some autocomplete function over here. And I'm going to use police shootings, and we're just going to limit 10. And I can click save. I can rename this query, and I can say this is a scratch query before we get to something more interesting. Then we can hit execute. So we hit execute, then you can see that there is a table format right here. And we can also choose to add visualization or edit visualization, which I will get into in much greater detail later on. And on the left-hand side here, you can also see the add description cell right here, that we can add more description about this particular query. And you will also notice that there is something called format query. If I click on this thing, then you can see that my query is not automatically formatted, rather than having for me to click on enter manually every time. So now you must be wondering, where is this query being executed against? So I can click on this endpoint right here. You can see this query name, endpoint name being called TechTalk Demo. And if I click on this, I'm just gonna exit it. And you can see one of the endpoints being TechTalk Demo. So once I click into this, and I can look at the details of this particular endpoint. So you can see that there is a name and there's also cluster size. So rather than having to determine the instance type that you want, we are just going to select the cluster size in terms of t-shirt sizing. So all the way from XXS to XXL. Here we have a small cluster size. There is also auto stop functionality where the cluster can be automatically terminated after 120 minutes of inactivity. There is also a functionality called multi-cluster load balancing, which allows multiple analysts to be on the same endpoint. So this functionality allows a number of clusters to be automatically scaled up to handle multiple workloads concurrently. So this means that even though on the front, we might be interacting with the same endpoint right here, but under the hood, they might be using different clusters. There's also a photon functionality, which allows our queries to be run at a higher speed as well. So now let's just dive right back into the queries that we use to produce our analysis. So I'm gonna click on this queries again, and I'm gonna click on my favorite ones. And let's start with the bar chart. So let's start with the cities with the highest shooting fatalities. So when I click into this, you can see that there is nothing yet, because if I look at the source of this SQL query, edit source, there's nothing in there. And to produce this query, I'm just gonna grab to this from this SQL queries notebook that I've grabbed from this GitHub page, 02 queries HTML. And I'm gonna click on my home button right here. And this 02 queries notebook. And then I'm gonna scroll down just to grab the query to show you how you would be able to reproduce this yourself at your own. So I'm gonna grab this, cities with highest fatalities. I'm gonna click save, and then I can execute. So you can see that now there is parameters being popped up. And the reason for why we're seeing parameters here is because of this curly braces. So you can see that whenever we want to add a parameter, all we need to do is just add query parameters right there with the curly braces. Or you can also choose to highlight something, a text, and then click on this curly braces right here that will allow you to add parameter as well. So when I have the parameters right here, I can click on this gear icon. And you can see that for this particular parameter, I can choose for it to have different types. There's text, there's number, there's drop-down list, there's also query-based drop-down list. If I were to click on text, then I will have to input the text for the state that I'm expecting myself. I can click on drop-down list where I have to specify a list of states right here. But I can also use query-based drop-down list, which is what I'm going to be using to just grab the results from another query. So I'm going to search for this query, and I have this query saved as list of states. So we can also take a look at the list of states query later on as well. So I'm going to click on this and OK. And then for year, I will do the same thing. So when I click on this gear icon, I can click on query-based drop-down list, and then I can choose to search for the list of years queries as well. And for this one, I'm going to allow multiple values because we are possibly interested in multiple years or even a single year. So I'm going to click on this allow multiple values and click on OK. So now I can start selecting the parameters I'm interested in. So I'm going to be clicking on USA and then also 2020. And I'm going to hit on this apply changes button to execute the query. So I'm going to click on this again. Wait a second. Let me try this again. So you can see that in Alabama, these are the top 5 cities that have the fatalities right here. But if we can also change it back to USA, then you can see that in 2020, these are the top 5 cities with the highest number of fatalities. So now I'm going to create a bar chart. So you can see that there is an existing bar chart I created before. I can delete it. And then I can add a visualization again. So when I click on this add visualization, this window will pop up and it will ask you to specify the visualization type that you're interested in. We are going to keep it to chart, and we can keep it as chart visualization as the visualization name. And then I can keep this as is because I am interested in a bar chart. For X column, it's going to be city. And then for Y column, it's going to be total fatalities. So you can see that now there is a preview of this visualization. So I can also choose to add labels to the Y-axis and also X-axis. So I can choose to name that right here, X-axis. And I can name it as city. And for Y-axis, I can give it a name of total number of fatalities. So here you can see that there's a legend here, but I'm really not interested in having this legend on the chart. So I'm going to hide it. So when I want to hide it, I can go back to the general tab and you can see the legend placement right here. I can click on it and just hit hide legend. So now I'm going to save this chart. Now you can see that this is the chart that we have produced. So now say that we want to add this to a dashboard. For us to do that, we have to first create a dashboard. So let me command click on this so that it will open in a new tab to create a new dashboard. So I'm going to hit new dashboard right here. And then I'm going to name it as Tech Talk Demo. Click save. And you can see that now this dashboard is empty. So now let's add the chart to this Tech Talk Demo dashboard. So I'm going to go back to this query. And then you can see this 3 dots right here. I'm going to click on this and then say add to dashboard. And now I can type the dashboard name that I'm interested in. So I'm going to click on this one and hit OK. Now you can see there is a message that pops up right here that says a widget is added to the dashboard. So if I were to go to this Tech Talk demo and refresh this page, then I should see this dashboard being shown. So I'm going to select the years I'm interested in. And you can see that this is the chart that we are hoping to see. And we can choose to enlarge this or span it across the width and also make it smaller. So right here, we have a query level filters. We can also choose to use dashboard level filters, which I will showcase later on once we have more than one query. So let me go back to this SQL Analytics page, and I'm going to show you, secondly, how to produce a Senki diagram. So let me click on this breakdown of fatal shootings. Again, it's empty. I'm going to hit edit source. And then I'm going to the queries notebook where you can find from the GitHub page and import. I believe it's up there. You can see that this is a pretty long query. And you can see that there is this common table expression right here with the with statements. So it would still work on SQL Analytics. So I'm going to copy this and then put it in here. And I'll copy the second part as well that contains the actual query. It's this one. As you can see, there's widgets right up for state and also for year, again, due to this curly braces. I'm going to click on this to edit the setting of this particular widget and make it list of states. And also list of years. I'm gonna select the year of 2020 and then click on USA and apply the changes. Seems like there's, let me try this again. So as you can see, this is the table that's required, the format that's required to produce a Senki diagram. So you can see from this, let me go back to this queries page to show you the visualization again. You can see that there is stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So we require the table format to be in the same format as well, which has the column name stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So if I go back to here, you can see that this is exactly what we were expecting. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then also a value column right here. So now I can click on this Add Visualization. And then I'm going to click on this visualization type again. And then you can see that there is a Senki option. So I'm going to click on this Senki visualization right here. And you can see this is the preview. So I'm going to click Save. And you can see that this is the Senki diagram that I was hoping to get. You can see that most of the victims are male, and then the breakdown of the races, and most of the victims do not show signs of mental illness. And you can see these are the types of weapons. And you can also see that when I hover over this stages right here, or types of weapons or types of variable values, it's actually interactive, so it can respond to where my cursor is. And you can see that most of the incidents do not have body camera coverage. So I'm satisfied with this graphic right here. So I'm going to add it to the dashboard. So I'm going to click on this 3 dots right here again and click Add to Dashboard. And repeating the same workflow, Tech Talk demo. We should be in the Tech Talk demo dashboard right now. So I'm going to refresh this page. And you can see that, not sure what is going on here. Let me go back to here just to check.
Can you hit save?
Oh yes, that is a good call. Yeah, that might be the reason why. So let me refresh this page. Yep. And I can move this, sorry, not remove, and then make this wider because it's a much bigger diagram than before. So you can see that we can choose to make this smaller, make this bigger. And now you can see that we have these 2 queries share the common query parameters. So I can choose to make this dashboard level. So I'm going to click on this Use Dashboard Level filters. And then when I can also choose to change the edit parameters here to make it dashboard level. So once I click into this edit parameters, then you can see that right now it's a widget parameter that's associated with this particular query, but I can change it to new dashboard parameter. And hit OK. And now you can see that there is dashboard level query filters right here. And then I can do the same thing for this breakdown of fatal shooting Senki diagram. Click on this 3 dots right here and edit parameters. And then I'm going to change it. Now that there is existing dashboard parameters, I'm going to leverage the existing ones rather than creating new ones. So I'm going to change it to existing dashboard parameter and click OK. And repeat the same thing for the year parameter as well. Okay. So now you can see that the parameters are no longer associated to this particular query, but you can see them at the top level. So now let's do the third query. We will be looking at the funnel chart of body camera coverage. So let me go back to the SQL Analytics page right here, and then just click on this body camera recording. Edit source. And now I'm going to go into this queries notebook and then grab the query. Just this one. actual query itself. And now I'm going to edit this parameter to make it query based. List of states. Hit OK. My changes. Then you can see that now we have a year-over-year percentage of body camera coverage. And I can click on Add Visualization. And now we are interested in looking at a funnel chart. So I can click on this, and you can see that funnel is right here. And I can choose to modify the step column, which will be the percent, the years, value column, body camera coverage. So you can see that you can see that now the steps or the year is not in ascending or descending order. So I can choose to sort them from this preview as well. So I'm going to hit custom sorting. And right now you can see that the sort column is based on this percent body camera in a descending order. So I'm going to change it to using year, and I'm going to use ascending. So you can see that compare 2020 to 2016, or even before, you can see the numbers have changed, and it's definitely a reduction from 2016. So now that I have this query or visualization that I'm satisfied with, I can click Save. And then now you can see this funnel chart. So to avoid me making the same mistake again, I'm going to remember to hit Save right here. And then click on this 3 dots and Add to Dashboard. Click Tech Talk Demo. Click OK. And then let me go to the Tech Talk Demo dashboard, refresh it. And you can see that now it's right here. So say that I really want this to be at the top, I can choose to do that. So it'll be right next to each other. And I'm going to edit this parameter, the widget, to be dashboard level. So we're using an existing dashboard parameter. Hit OK. And now you can see that all these 3 queries right here are using the same parameters of state in the USA and year 2020 and 2019. So we can choose to add text box here as well. So I'm going to click Add Text Box, and I can say this is a demo. And I can add to dashboard. You can see this shows up at the very bottom, and I can move this all the way up right here. I can also choose to add some markdown syntax to make my text more interesting, like bolding or heading levels. So you can play around with that. So say that let me just try to move this to be wider. So now that I'm good with this dashboard, I can click Done Editing. So you can see that here, if I hover over this title level, there is a functionality to add tag. And that is how I have been able to, let me just show you what it looks like here. You can see that there is this police tech talk tag right here to categorize all my queries under the same umbrella. So I can choose to do the same thing to dashboard as well. So if I were to go back to my dashboard and add tag, and I can choose to have a demo tag right here, and then I can click OK. And then if I were to go back to the home page right here, then you can see that there is a list of tags associated with the dashboard itself. So when I click on this demo right here, it's going to bring me to this Tech Talk demo. Alternatively, if I really like this dashboard, I want to iterate on this over and over again, I can also choose to have favorites so that it's really quick and easy for me to retrieve this particular query or dashboard. So now, on this, then you can see that now once I adjust the parameters in the dashboard itself, the query visualizations will be updated accordingly. So one thing that I haven't shown you is the list of states or list of years query. So if I go back to this homepage, if I click on list of years, you can see that this has a tabular view of the result of the query. So I'm going to click on edit source to show you the source code. You can see that this is really just simple SQL query. I'm going to select all the years and make it into so that I can have a query drop-down based query. And then let me look at the list of states as well. And you can see that when I edit source, just select state from police, this table right here. So you can see that we can really leverage the query results so that we can keep our queries clean while still making sure that the dashboard parameter can leverage existing query results. One other thing that it might be really helpful for you is the sharing permission settings. So here, I can choose to share this query with my coworkers. So say that now I'm going to share this query to Brooke with Brooke, and I can choose her, right now her permission level will be can run, and I'm going to add her to this query. So it means that now she can also run this query as well. And I can also choose to fork this query if I were to explore this query in a different, with different syntaxes. So now I can fork it, then you can see that now the name is automatically renamed for a copy of something something. Then I can now choose to change the way that I'm writing my syntax here without polluting my existing query that already works. Another thing that you might have noticed just now is this refresh schedule. So you can see that this refresh schedule here says never. I can choose to update this to every minute, every 5 minutes, or every hour, or every day or week as well. I can do the same refresh schedule setting on the dashboard level. So if I go to my Tech Talk demo dashboard, you can see there is a refresh setting right here that allows us to set a refresh schedule. So what this does is that if I were to set this to every 1 hour, then this dashboard will be refreshed every 1 hour. And same thing with the dashboard permissions. I can also choose to share this dashboard with my coworkers. And we can run. If you ever need help on SQL Analytics Workspace, you can see that there is a question mark right here. So if you click on this, it should bring you the documentation page of SQL Analytics. And if you are curious about what queries have been run in this workspace, you can click on this history icon to look at a list of the queries that have been run. So you can see that it was me who ran this query on this date at this particular time. I can keep scrolling down, to see who has run a query against any tables, and I can click on this first query right here to see the detail of the query as well. So you can see that this is the query that was run, status was finished, it took 342 milliseconds, and this was the execution details. So this enables auditability of the queries that are run on this SQL Analytics Workspace. So with that, we can keep going on this police dashboard right here by adding more and more queries. But I hope that now you have gotten the gist of how to import the queries from this notebook that we have, or even start your own on the SQL Analytics Workspace, and can see how we are able to edit queries and also add visualizations from here, and also add the visualizations to the dashboard as well. Yeah, so with that, we can begin to take any questions.
Great, thank you so much, Chengyin. One of the first questions that came through was about the availability of SQL Analytics. This one I'd like John to answer.
Sorry, I was on mute. So yeah, basically currently to get access to SQL Analytics, you will need to work with your data representative as it's in a gated public preview. But shortly, on the AWS, it'll be available for any E2N, multi-tenant workspaces, as well as on Azure to any premium and enterprise SKUs. So we'll be opening that up shortly.
Great, thank you. And just as a follow-up to that one, what are the new features we should be looking forward to in 2021 for SQL Analytics that you can share?
Oh, there's a bunch of stuff coming. Like off the top of my head, like in the short term, we're working on a lot of security features. For example, the collaborative around collaboration, general security around being able to apply individual user credentials or embed a shared credentials so that you can work with a variety of scenarios. Beyond that, a lot of effort is going to the discovery experience as well as the autocomplete experience. So you'll see basically across both the SQL editing and workbench experience, as well as content organization, security, and kind of making all of these things fast and quick, kind of coming up as we go through the main pieces of integration after the previews.
Thank you. All right, next question for Changin. People are asking, why did you pick this data set for the demo? What was the motivation behind it? You're on mute.
That's a great question. I actually learned about this data set because of Brooke Wennick as well. So we just started looking at what data sets can we, glean insights from that has some social impact. And yeah, then we were looking at police fatal shootings, and initially we were hoping to get an official data set from FBI, but it seems that FBI, you can read more from a blog post as well. It doesn't have complete data set yet, which is why we turned to another data source. Brooke, anything else to add from your side?
I think part of it was just being stuck at home, feeling like we couldn't really contribute much to the COVID efforts, since we're not part of the group of leading researchers working with COVID or enacting policy. And so it just came out of a desire of using data for some form of social good. And given all of the activities happening over the summer, this seemed like a good data set to work with. There are lots of limitations. The blog post goes into it in more detail. Some of them being there's all of the data is compiled by the Washington Post. And so it's possible there are more fatal shootings that don't make it into the newspapers or into the media. So we'd miss out on those. It's also only fatal shootings. It doesn't have any other type of fatalities that occurred in the hands of law enforcement. And then there's also no information about any of the officers. So actually my reasoning for wanting to look into this is I was just curious how this differed based off of tenure of officers, number of officers, gender, race, etc. And so that is something that the Washington Post is investigating, which is adding in officer information to this data. But right now it's actually very difficult to get any of these data sets from the US. If you look at Canada, for example, there's actually a whole Wikipedia page of all of the different fatalities by law enforcement, but the US has nothing comparable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for any of you who are interested in continuing analysis in this thread, in this train of thought, we encourage you to also look at alternative data sources as well. You can look at Washington Post is one. There's also another one by Mapping Police Violence. It has data on non-shooting fatalities as well. We only discovered this after we are deep down into our Washington Post data. So this will be an alternative data source for you to look into if you're interested in learning more about this topic.
All right, and then excellent follow-up question from the audience. How come the data does not go back enough, like 10 to 20 years?
Yeah, that is a really great question. I honestly don't have a good answer for that. I did read somewhere from the Bureau of Justice Statistics. I think there was actually an act that was enacted to basically address the lack. I think the government was also surprised that there is no data on police shootings until very recently, which is why they enacted the act in the 90s. And then so we started seeing more data surfacing after. But obviously, not right now is still not enough. And yeah.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Changin said, it is a manual effort right now, going back and filling in this historical data. So I think the data will be much more reliable going forwards, but going back that far, I don't know how much of it even hit the mainstream media, especially if they're in much smaller local newspapers or news, if they even made it there.
Yeah, it's also really hard when a case is not as high profile. We find that some of the data is actually more complete when it's a higher profile case. So that also speaks to the challenges in compiling a really comprehensive database around this social issue.
All right, and then another question, is it possible to integrate with modules of a notebook with Databricks? So I think people want to better understand how SQL Analytics fits into the bigger Databricks ecosystem. If you could go back and just share your screen, or sorry, share that tab.
Yep, right here. So I'm going to click on this button to show you the Databricks Workspace homepage. So this is where we typically would run our Python code or Scala code or R code. I switched to the SQL Analytics Workspace by clicking on this bottom left icon right here. If I click on this, you can see there are two options, Workspace, which is the current one, and the SQL Analytics. So when I click on this bottom option, then it will bring me to this SQL Analytics Workspace.
And then I think people are interested in learning more about how the endpoints relate to clusters, just to fully answer the question from there. So when you spin up an endpoint in SQL Analytics, it is spinning up a cluster, but these clusters are entirely separate from the clusters tab that you see on the main Databricks workspace page. So if you create an endpoint here, it won't show up in that other workspace. And then Changin, it might be helpful just to show folks the admin console back in the main Databricks workspace to show how to give people permission to access SQL Analytics.
Yep. So let me go back there. So I'm going to hit on this icon right here. Actually, I'm not an admin console. I'm not an admin, so I can't show you. But
refresh your page.
Okay.
Sorry, I just gave you admin. Sorry about that.
So let me click on this. Not sure if it's showing up.
Sorry, it might need to sign out and sign back in to see it updated.
Yeah, let me do that. Log out. Yes, admin console. And you can see that here is a list of the usernames, and you can see there's admin level, workspace access, SQL Analytics access, and allow cluster creation. So as long as you have access to create clusters on this workspace, then you will have access to create cluster on the SQL Analytics workspace.
Perfect. And then just a comment from the audience about the blog post, since this talk didn't go too much into it. It was about interesting to hear about the amount of money Alaska is spending on policing. I'm not sure if you just want to do a quick overview of Alaska versus New York versus California, just to fill in all the folks that are joining us live.
Yep, let me pull up the blog post. So the reason you will see that, for those of you who haven't read the blog post yet, the reason why we picked 3 states, Alaska, California, and also New York, is that these 3 states are the states in the US that has the highest police spending. So we were interested to look at whether these 3 states have different outcomes, since they all have the highest police spending. And we did find that all of them have very different trends. And let me scroll further down in this blog post. So you can see that pretty much in most of the years that we have looked at, if not top 5, it was definitely the top state that has the highest police fatalities per capita. And in terms of sheer numbers, it has the highest magnitude of police fatality shootings. But what is interesting when I look at this data set was that if we were to, let me scroll further down first, aggregate the numbers over here, for Black and non-white and white racial groups, then we actually saw that California has the highest racial disparity. You can read more about this here. Black people in Alaska are 8 times more likely to be killed by police than Black people in New York, and that figure jumps to 41 times, which is really huge. Yeah, and also really interesting finding that we found is that Alaska, also has the highest gun ownership per capita as well. And we were interested in looking at if there's a correlation between gun ownership and also police fatal shootings. And turns out that there is a very significant correlation. You can see that the correlation strength is at 0.64. So the closer to 1 it is, the more positive or the more highly correlated it is. And you can see that the p-value is at 10 to the -7. And if you're interested in how we produce this correlation analysis, you can go back to our notebook. It's in our 3rd notebook. If I click on this folder right here, you can see this 0-3 gun ownership versus fatalities. So we have created the tables and also using SciPy to find the p-values and the correlation. So you can reproduce how we got the numbers. Anything else that you want to add, Brooke?
So I think the main reason why we're looking into the gun ownership is just because with that Senki diagram Changin had produced, the most common weapon somebody had at the time of a shooting was a gun. And so that's why we wanted to see what that correlation actually looked like with the population as a whole.
Yeah. Let me go to the original dashboard because it's much more comprehensive. yeah, we're waiting for this to load up to run all the queries. Any other questions in the meantime?
Yeah, there are a few more questions. One is about Photon. I think folks want a little bit more information about what the Photon engine is, and how does it help improve the speed of queries? John, do you want to take that one actually,
Yeah,
since you're
I
PM for
got that.
SQL Analytics?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're basically working, on a few features to enable better performance as part of the SQL Analytics, right? And Photon engine is actually one of those primary drivers, right? So basically, SQL endpoints within SQL Analytics are powered behind the scenes by Photon, and during preview, it's actually a toggle that you can enable on a per endpoint basis if you want to give that a shot. And for GA, that will actually be defaulting to that being the default, and you won't have the option. But Photon is not the only reason why SQL Analytics is fast, right? So you kind of have load balancing capabilities to handle the concurrency bit. So you're getting the price perf basically from the Photon engine, but we're scaling that and making that fairly easy and self-driving with the rest of the management of the SQL Analytics service. But yeah, Photon is one of the main drivers. Gives us much better memory management, lower level optimization and parallelism to give you much better performance with things like projections, joins, and aggregations, and overall basically give you something much more price efficient on a per CPU to CPU, memory to memory basis.
All right, and then another follow-up question for you, John. So we have all of these queries and dashboards in here. Is there any type of Git integration or CI/CD with SQL Analytics?
Not yet, but basically we're right now looking into an experience where tracking and merging assets on SQL Analytics that also somewhat works and is consistent with the rest of the workspace. So definitely something top of mind that I will be looking into alongside some of the other security capabilities I mentioned like just a few minutes ago.
All right. Any other questions from the audience? Anything else you'd like to know? All right, I think we can wrap up a few minutes early. Karen, I'm not sure if you have any final slides you wanted to share.
No final slides, but just I don't see any questions either. So it looks like we're all good there. So I'll just wrap up by saying thank you so much, Jingying and Brooke and John, for your time in presenting today. And thanks everyone so much for joining us. We're so glad to have you here, and hopefully you'll check out that Data Brew vidcast and also join us next week for our Tech Talk on Tuesday. So with that, thanks again and have a great rest of your day, everyone. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you.